What if the very pain you are trying to escape is the exact force designed to forge you into someone unbreakable? Think about your life right now. Think about everything you do to avoid discomfort. You scroll through endless feeds to numb a quiet, gnawing anxiety. You swallow your truth in meetings to avoid the friction of conflict. You stay in relationships that drain the life out of you because the terror of being alone feels infinitely worse than the slow rot of staying. You consume, you distract, you adapt, and you smile. You have built an entire existence around a single obsessive pursuit, the elimination of pain. And you call this stability, you call this a good life, you call this happiness. But what if I told you that this desperate pursuit of comfort is exactly what is keeping you weak? We live in a world that idolizes pleasure and demonizes pain. We are constantly taught that suffering is a sign of failure, that feeling pain is a mistake, and that a good life is a peaceful, frictionless life. But Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most dangerous and brilliant philosophers in human history, looked at this pursuit of comfort and called it a lie. A seductive, comfortable lie, but one that turns human beings into domesticated, obedient, and fragile creatures. Nietzsche did not believe that human beings primarily desire happiness. He asserted that the true driving force of existence is not the desire for peace, but the drive for overcoming. Today, we are going to dismantle the great modern illusion of comfort. We will dive deep into the unvarnished, brutal psychology of Friedrich Nietzsche to understand why your pain is not an obstacle, but the very raw material of your greatness. We will explore the trap of slave morality, the illusion of the good person, the alchemical fire of the will to power, and the profound transformation required to become the Übermensch, the Overman. By the end of this video, you will stop running from the storm. You will learn how to weaponize your suffering, and you will never look at your own pain the same way again. Chapter 1. The Padded Cell of Modernity. To understand why you feel so hollow, we first have to examine the cage you are currently living inside. Look around at the culture we have built. We live in an era that worships excess productivity, excess information, excess entertainment. Everything is designed so that you never have to face a single moment of existential emptiness. The moment you feel boredom, sadness, or frustration, there is an immediate solution at hand. A screen, a notification, a purchase, a quick hit of dopamine. We are completely surrounded by stimuli that promise happiness but deliver absolute emptiness. And the psychological cost of this endless anesthesia is devastating. When you successfully remove all friction from your life, your psychological immune system begins to atrophy. You lose the ability to deal with boredom, with silence, with introspection. Today, any minor discomfort feels unbearable. Small failures become existential crises. You are not protecting yourself. You are building a padded cell. You are transforming into a brittle creature, someone who shatters the moment the world stops functioning exactly the way you expect it to. Nietzsche, writing in the 19th century, foresaw this exact psychological collapse. He looked at a society that was beginning to prioritize comfort, safety, and moral purity above all else, and he was disgusted by it. He warned that a civilization that fears pain is a civilization that is slowly dying from the inside out. We are taught that suffering is a malfunction. If you are anxious, take a pill. If you are sad, buy something. If you feel lost, find a distraction. But Nietzsche saw pain through a completely different lens. He saw pain as an alchemical process. He understood that suffering is not a flaw in the system, it is the system itself. He famously wrote, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." This is not a piece of cheap motivational poetry. It is a brutal, clinical diagnosis of the human soul. True strength is born from rupture. Legitimate courage is born from overcome fear. Real clarity only comes after a total collapse. Without the friction of conflict, without the danger of failure, you do not remain the same. You degenerate. When you run from pain, you are starving your own psyche of the exact raw material it needs to evolve. Chapter 2. The Lie of the Good, Patsun, and Slave Morality. To keep you inside this padded cell, society had to invent a psychological leash, and that leash is the concept of goodness. Since you were a child, you have been shaped to please. You were praised when you yielded, and punished when you dared to be yourself. You were taught that the right thing to do is to sacrifice, to be silent, to nullify your own needs. You learned to smile to keep the peace, to swallow your anger, to avoid confrontation at all costs. And over time, you learned to take pride in this. You learn to call your fear of taking a stand character. You learn to call your inability to say no kindness. Nietzsche looked at this so-called virtue and tore it to shreds. He understood that much of what you call your goodness is nothing but disguised fear. In his landmark work, On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche reveals a brutal historical process. He argues that the values you carry today did not arise from nobility of spirit, but from impotence, resentment, and the need for the weak to defend themselves against the strong. He called this the slave morality. Imagine a time when strength was the law. Noble individuals, warriors, creators, they did not apologize for their power or their desires. Their morality was active and affirmative. Good was that which reflected strength, courage, greatness, and self-sufficiency. But the weak, those unable to win in the game of power, had only one resource left: to turn the game inside out. They created a new morality based on the inversion of values. What was once considered good, strength, pride, courage, came to be seen as bad, as sinful, as arrogant. And what was once considered weakness, suspicion, obedience, humility, passivity, was elevated to the status of a holy virtue. This was not done out of a genuine desire for goodness. It was an act of survival born from resentment. The morality of slaves is a value system that glorifies retreat and renunciation as if they were superior choices, when in fact they are unconscious defenses against the inability to act. And you are still infected by this poison today. Every time you remain silent in the face of an offense and then spend hours ruminating on what you could have said, that is resentment. Every time you see someone abusing your goodwill and instead of asserting yourself, you just accumulate bitterness, that is resentment. Every time you pretend to be at peace but feel a growing bitterness for not being able to defend your boundaries, that is resentment. You convince yourself that you are mature by avoiding conflicts, when in fact it is fear that paralyzes you. You have been domesticated. You have been trained to believe that being strong, asserting your will, and imposing limits is wrong. But true virtue does not come from effort or self-denial. The goodness you are performing is suffocating your actual life force. Chapter 3, The Will to Power. So, if the pursuit of comfort makes us weak and the morality of goodness makes us resentful slaves, what is the alternative? What is the truth of our nature? Nietzsche gives us a concept that has been deeply, tragically misunderstood for over a century: the will to power. When people hear that phrase, they immediately picture conquest, domination, tyranny, and the drive to crush the competition. But Nietzsche meant something fundamentally different and infinitely more difficult. For Nietzsche, the will to power is not primarily about controlling others. It is about self-mastery. It is the deep, primordial drive of life. Everything that lives wants to expand, assert itself, grow, and surpass its own limits. The will to power is the impulse that drives the seed to break through the earth, the human being to create, to conquer, to transcend. The will to power is you against you. It is every decision that challenges your fear, every choice that demands courage. It is looking in the mirror and deciding not to settle for what you see. It is the force that pushes an athlete to train harder, an artist to dig deeper into their craft, a thinker to question their own assumptions. But the slave morality tries to suffocate this will. It tells you, do not assert your desire, do not stand out, do not be dangerous. It wants you to conform to a small, harmless, controllable place, and when you repress your will to power, it does not disappear. It corrupts. It turns against you, breeding the very resentment, passivity, and self-pity that keeps you trapped. Recovering your will to power means reconnecting with the vital force you were taught to fear. It means abandoning the illusion that virtue lies in submission. It means accepting that life is conflict and that conscious confrontation is an act of affirmation, not gratuitous violence, but self-overcoming hurts. It requires you to betray the version of yourself that brought you here, the version that learned to survive, to protect itself, to avoid conflict, to hide. To become someone new, you will have to kill the old version of yourself. True power is not about defeating others, it is about defeating oneself. And this process of inner alchemy requires a map. Nietzsche gave us one of the most brilliant symbolic blueprints for this transformation in the history of philosophy. Chapter 4. The Three Metamorphoses. In his masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche describes the three metamorphoses of the spirit. This is not just a metaphor, it is an existential roadmap to your liberation. First, the spirit becomes a camel. The camel is the spirit that carries burdens. It bends its knees to take on the weight of others' expectations, social norms, and moral obligations imposed by a culture that venerates passivity. The camel is told, "You must be obedient, you must be humble, you must swallow your anger, you must avoid confrontation," and the camel accepts everything. It is strong in its ability to endure, but this strength is sterile. It is the strength of resignation, not of creation. Worse still, the camel takes pride in its own suffering. The more it submits, the more it believes it is virtuous. This is where you are right now, bearing the weight of a life that is not yours. But there comes a moment when the spirit of the camel revolts. It can no longer bear the weight of the lies it carries. It desires freedom, and for that it needs to become a lion. The lion is the spirit that learns to say no. No to external impositions, no to slave morality, no to social roles that diminish it. The lion embodies the awakened will to power. But the lion does not seek to destroy just for the sake of destruction. Its struggle is for an inner territory where it can exist authentically. To conquer this space, the lion must face the greatest of all dragons, the dragon of thou shalt. On every scale of this dragon shines a commandment: thou shalt be meek, thou shalt be submissive, thou shalt avoid conflict. To bring down this dragon requires immense courage. You will have to face disapproving looks, criticism, rejection. You will have to deal with the guilt that has been internalized in you since childhood. But this is a necessary struggle, because only when you learn to say a genuine, conscious no do you free yourself from the prison of submission. And then comes the last metamorphosis, the child. The child is the reborn spirit, free from the weight of the camel, free from the defensive necessity of the lion. Now, the spirit is creative. It no longer lives by reacting, but by creating. It creates its own values, it chooses where to submit and where to rebel, and it lives lightly, authentically, and joyfully. At this stage, conflict ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a space for creation. You no longer seek to defeat the other, but to assert yourself according to who you truly are. But transitioning from the camel to the lion and the lion to the child requires stepping into a void. It requires letting go of the ultimate safety net, the belief that there is a cosmic plan designed to save you. Chapter 5. The Death of God and the Abyss of Freedom. When Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," he was not celebrating. He was issuing a terrifying warning. He was not merely talking about the existence or non-existence of a divine entity. He was announcing the collapse of absolute truths, unquestionable commandments, and inherited morals. He killed the illusion that there is a higher authority taking care of everything, the illusion that there is a pre-established meaning given by someone from the outside. The death of God is the end of every excuse. And what remains when all of this falls apart? Chaos, emptiness, the vertigo of realizing that there is no longer a ready-made structure to follow. For centuries, it was easy to outsource the responsibility for your life. It was comforting to believe that suffering was part of a divine plan, that a greater good would justify your pain in the end. Nietzsche violently tears this veil away. He looks you in the face and says, "You are alone. There is no ready-made meaning." Now, you are the creator. Most people collapse when they realize they are alone in the face of chaos, without a manual, without guarantees, and with no one to blame but themselves. But for those who have the courage to face this without crumbling, it is the birth of brutal autonomy. This freedom that frightens you is also the greatest source of power you can have. When you understand that no one will come to save you, something within you awakens, a fire that forces you to rise even while bleeding, that forces you to think, feel, and act not because someone said it is right, but because you decided it is. This brings us to the ultimate test of your strength. Nietzsche did not just want you to endure reality. He wanted to know if you had the psychological fortitude to embrace it completely. He called this ultimate test the eternal recurrence. Chapter 6. Amor Fati and the Eternal Recurrence. Nietzsche introduced a thought experiment designed to completely shatter how you view your suffering. Imagine that you will live your life over and over again, infinitely, exactly as it is. Every decision repeated, every moment replayed, every hour spent in exactly the same way it was spent the first time forever. Every pain, every betrayal, every humiliation, every tear played on an infinite loop for all of eternity. Now ask yourself a brutal silent question that demands an honest answer. If you had to live this life exactly as it is infinitely, would you accept it or would you despair? Most people would be horrified because most people hate their reality. They live in regret, wishing the past had been different, or they live in anticipation, hoping the future will finally bring them peace. But the individual who has achieved true mastery over themselves responds differently. They embrace a concept Nietzsche called Amor Fati. The love of one's fate. Amor Fati is not passive resignation. It is not helplessly accepting what happens to you. It is the fierce, full-throated embrace of your life, exactly as it is, including its deepest difficulties and sharpest disappointments, as the necessary raw material for becoming who you are. Instead of defining yourself by opposition to the things you resent, you define yourself by your commitment to the life you are actually building. You do not say, "I wish this pain had never happened." You say, "This pain was the exact fire required to forge my current strength." To love your fate is to understand that the suffering you endured was not a detour from your path. It was the path. The betrayals taught you discernment. The failures stripped away your arrogance. The loneliness forced you to build an internal foundation. If you erase the suffering, you erase the strength. Therefore, you must seek the power to overcome, not the happiness of avoiding the struggle. You must learn to dance with the chaos. But you cannot do this surrounded by the noise of the crowd. Chapter 7. The Solitude of the Overman. There is a secret about the path of mental strength that almost no one will tell you. The stronger you become, the more lonely you will feel. And it is not because you isolate yourself by choice. It is because the world starts to not know what to do with you. The free spirit, the one who breaks away from common morality, who does not accept easy truths, who thinks for themselves, inevitably distances themselves from the herd. And that distancing hurts. But that pain is necessary because real growth requires space, and you cannot grow while being tied to the expectations of others. Most people live within an invisible herd where every thought is policed, where every action is measured by others' reactions. You have gotten used to walking in a group, thinking like the group, feeling secure because there are people around you. But Nietzsche tears you away from that comfort and throws you into the desert. In that desert there is no applause, no praise, no guide. There is only you, your doubts, your traumas, your fears, and your desire to give up. What will most people do? They will run back. They will hide again behind their masks. They will pretend they don't feel, that they don't think, that they don't see. But if you truly want to become someone that no one can break, you will have to stay. Nietzsche said, "He who cannot endure solitude does not love freedom." That phrase cuts deep because everyone claims to want to be free. But freedom requires a strength few are willing to develop, the ability to not depend on the validation of others to exist, the courage to be whole even in the absence of witnesses. Silence and solitude are not empty, they are alchemy. Solitude is the laboratory where the true self begins to emerge, stripped of masks, disconnected from external expectations. The ordinary person flees from loneliness because it confronts them with their own internal chaos. The strong person seeks it because they know that only by diving into this chaos do they discover inner order. When you start to liberate yourself, the collective mediocrity feels it, and it reacts. Society does not pursue those who are the same. It pursues those who dare to stand out. Collective mediocrity cannot stand individual brilliance because that brilliance exposes the darkness of ordinary life. They will call you arrogant. They will call you cold. They will call you strange. They will use shame, exclusion, and guilt to make you lower your head. But understand this, they are not attacking you because you are doing something wrong. They are attacking you because you are doing something rare. You are breaking the mold, and your difference is the spark of transformation. Non-conclusion, the weapon of suffering. You have spent your entire life trying to avoid pain, trying to fit in, trying to be a good person in a world that uses your goodness to keep you submissive. You have swallowed your anger, you have silenced your truth, you have outsourced your identity to the herd. But the suffering you have been trying so desperately to escape is the exact weapon you need to forge your sovereignty. Nietzsche did not want to create followers. He wanted to provoke internal earthquakes. He wanted you to stop crawling for approval, stop begging for meaning, and stop seeking in ready-made systems what can only be built with blood, sweat, and awareness. Not in a violent sense, but in a rare sense, so rare that your mere existence forces others to look in the mirror and confront what they are avoiding. Do not run from the chaos. Do not numb the pain. Use it. When you fail, when you are betrayed, when the world strips away your illusions, you do not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" You ask, "How can I use this suffering to become lethal? How does this obstacle forge my will to power?" The fire that burns the fragile to ashes is the exact same fire that tempers the strong. You have a choice right now. You can return to the herd, put the mask back on, and live a peaceful, anesthetized, empty life. Or you can step into the desert, face your own abyss, and decide that you will no longer be a victim of your circumstances, but the absolute creator of your own destiny. Stop trying to survive. Stop trying to be comfortable. Deck power. Seek truth. Seek the glorious, terrifying chaos within you. Now go face the storm.